So, I have been seeing different types of travelers' journals everywhere for quite a while now, and I've wanted a Louise Carmen one ever since I saw someone on YouTube get one. But I saw how expensive they are, and that ship sailed pretty quickly. Until that same YouTuber posted a video making her own, and that was all I needed to see. I bought all of the supplies online immediately and waited very impatiently for them to come. In the meantime, I was on the hunt for some books to go inside my leather journal cover, and I knew I definitely wanted a watercolour book, but when I went to my local art shop, they didn't have any books that were A5 sized. However, the lady at the art shop suggested that I make my own, so that is exactly what I did. Making anything myself is always such a rewarding process. The items feel so much more special, and it's always so fun learning lots of things along the way. It's also never as hard as I expect it to be when I first start out, and this was no different. As someone who relies on lists and has been journaling religiously for 3 or so years now, the idea of having a customizable vessel with all of my notebooks and journals in it was right up my alley. And also the leather ages with you, which I think is really, really cool. So although this is somewhat of a tutorial, I mainly want to inspire you to be creative and make something yourself, especially if it's something that you thought you couldn't have. I've also linked all of the videos that I followed along and that inspired me in the description in case you want a little bit more of a guide on how to do this. But I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope that the process is as satisfying for you as it was for me.
So while I waited for all of the supplies for my leather journal to come, I went and picked up some A3 watercolor paper because that was the only size that my art shop had, which meant that I had to cut it into A4 and then fold it in half to make it A5 because I decided I wanted to make an A5 leather journal. It just felt like the most convenient journal size to me personally. So I folded that in half and repeated it with all of the other pieces until I had this very thick book. And I did an art course a couple of years ago, and I had this painting left over from that, so I decided to put it to use finally and make it my book cover. So I just measured it and cut it down to size to fit the book. Because the piece of paper was so thin, I just decided to glue it onto one of my pages. Had it have been thicker, I probably would have just left it and not used up art space, but oh well. And then I have lost my hammer. I do not know where my hammer is, so I'm using an axe, but thankfully it worked very well actually, despite looking slightly menacing. And now I'm just measuring out 2 centimeter increments along the spine of the book, and I am hammering nails through those marks. I decided to make quite a few holes. Some people only do 3, but because my book was quite thick, I wanted it to be very sturdy and secure. And then I'm just sewing that all together with some very strong thread. I would definitely recommend pegging or clipping your pages together before you hammer holes through the book. I did not do this. I was lazy, and I definitely should have. It made the sewing process just a little bit more fiddly, but I got there in the end. I just had to take my time with it. And then I just tied a knot in the middle of the notebook, and my homemade saddle stitch notebook was all done. I really, really love how it turned out, and I will definitely be making more of these in the future. And then finally, all of my supplies arrived in the mail. You don't really need that many things, but what you will need are some scissors, some elastic of your color choice, a leather hole punch the size of your eyelets, an eyelet applicator, 2mm eyelets, a ruler, a pencil or a pen, and then the vegetable tan leather. This is just a scrap piece that I use to practice applying the eyelets. And then of course, ideally a hammer, but I've got my handy dandy axe. And to start off with, you're just going to measure the leather to the size of whatever journal you've decided to make. There are lots of different templates online for all of the different measurements, but if you're going with A5 like I did, I will put the measurements that I used up on the screen. And then once you've marked that out, you are just going to cut it out. You can use proper leather cutting tools, but honestly, I found scissors worked perfectly fine. And then a little happy dance because I can see it starting to take shape already. Now I just cut off one of the corners of the scrap piece of leather that I had to measure my rounded corners, but you could use any rounded object. And then I'm just cutting them and I can see how it's gonna look while it's all folded, which gets another little happy dance. I was very excited at this point. And now I'm just gonna measure where my eyelets are going to go. So this will be along the spine of my book. I will pop the measurements up here as well. And I decided to go with 3 different holes just so that I had more room to put books in as my journals grow. And then that's my little practice piece that I did. Now I'm just cutting out the holes where I marked. And I just did it to the other side as well. And then of course, time to light some incense because things were getting serious. And now I'm just putting the eyelets in through the holes. And I'm hammering that in. I've seen that some people have another side to the eyelet, another ring that goes on top, and a different bottom part of the applicator. Mine didn't come with either of those, and this worked just fine. So if yours also don't come with those other parts, no need to worry, it still works either way. And then I just repeated that on both sides as well. And then I measured between the 2 middle eyelets to find my middle eyelet, which is going to be where I put the elastic to hold the journal cover together. And already it's time to cut and tie the elastic. So I'm just threading it through the holes. And you want to tie it so it's a little bit taut. This will help to shape the journal and make sure the books stay in place. And then I just cut that and repeated it with the other 2. And then I'm burning the ends of the elastic so that it doesn't fray. This will just make sure that it lasts longer. And now I get to choose out what charm I want for my journal. I went with this beautiful labradorite piece from an old necklace I had. And then I just pushed the elastic back through the hole with a pencil because it was a bit of a tight squeeze. And now I'm just going through and trying to see what books I want to put in my journal. I went with the moleskin notebooks because they're a little bit smaller than A5, but they fit really nicely. And I got a pack of the lined ones and a pack of the blank ones for sketching as well. And the journal is pretty much all done, so it is time for the big reveal of the books that I ended up choosing to go in it and the completed journal all finished. So this is my finished journal. I absolutely love how it turned out. I'm so glad that I made the watercolor notebook to go inside it as well. It just adds such a nice touch. I went with one of the lined moleskin journals as my main journal, and then I'm just using this plastic portfolio for the meantime until I find a leather portfolio that I really like. And then I've got one of the blank journals for sketching and another one of the lined journals for lists. I love the colors that I chose for the journals as well. I think it complements the olive green leather really nicely. That is my finished journal. I love the labradorite as well. I think it matches so nicely. I also added some more little charms on the side, and I think I'll add more charms as I go along. I highly recommend this to anybody, but especially those who love journaling, just love writing down little things throughout their day, or painting or drawing as you go, especially if you catch public transport or if you're traveling. I found this cute little bench and I just sat here and painted for about an hour, and it was so nice and relaxing and felt so satisfying to create something in the notebook that I had just created.